a fun day. It has been amazing getting things ready and having fun and making mistakes and then recovering from them. But to do it all with family, because it's what you guys are considered, is awesome. And we are so happy. We would love to do a 2-day conference. Yeah. We didn't have the money for it. Maybe down the road we'll be able to. But in the meantime, there were coalitions, there were groups that we wanted so desperately to have a part of, but we didn't have enough time. So we came up with our coalitions panel. These are people that you need to pay particular attention to. They've all got small niches, just like our vendors outside. But we wanted you to have, not only from the other speakers, but we wanted you to have something you could do here in Maryland. So we gathered together some people that we are hoping to help you today. So I'm going to introduce everybody and then kind of sit over here up here. And we'll go on forward and then hope you guys stick around for our closing and our one of the sponsors. So first we have Paul Mendez, who worked in the nonprofit field for 30 years, has been concerned with the issue of illegal immigration since 2001. He went to the Arizona border with Minutemen Civil Defense Camp in 2008. I would love to probably do a whole panel on just that. He is a super volunteer with Help Save Maryland. Next, we have Kathy Keller, and I just gotta make sure that I check my notes because I'm scared I'm gonna forget something. Who is the president of Election Integrity Maryland, is a nonpartisan, non-profit citizen initiative. Now, Kathy and Election Integrity Maryland is dedicated to upholding free and fair elections, even though we kind of hate the word fair. It needs to be fair. There needs to be justice there. She's a 34-year resident of Montgomery County, where she's an active realtor, and she has put a lot of hard work, along with the rest of her crew, from Election Integrity Maryland, to truing up our vote here in Maryland. Next, we have wonderful Elizabeth Myers, who I want all of you to get involved with. My key ones is Election Integrity Maryland Legislative Watch, because Elizabeth and Legislative Watch are going to help us watch over all of these liberty-infringing bills that are about to come through the State House. And so I want you to join in with Elizabeth, because this is a necessary job. And even if you only have time to read one bill, listen. Okay, next, we have Jim Warner. And I have to read my notes on this, because I don't want to forget a single thing. So Jim Warner is a distinguished veteran and a retired attorney with the National Rifle Association. He served as a domestic policy advisor to President Ronald Reagan, and while on a mission during the Vietnam War, was shot down and held prisoner for 5 years. The Silver Star, the Legion of Merit with the device, with the Valor device, 2 Bronze Stars with the Valor device, 2 Purple Hearts, 9 Air Medals, the Navy Commendation Medal with the Valor device, and Prisoner of War Medal. Sorry, I'm going to put this over here. Jim, thank you. This is not discovery.
Thank you.
Sorry. My family will tell you I'm complete sad. All right, then we come to Doug Mangler, who is Vice President of Election Integrity Maryland, and has done so much to help fight for traditional marriage and for traditional family values. Sorry, lost my place. All right, so Doug works closely with the Maryland Marriage Alliance. I have to say that slowly because I always trip up. And the Maryland Catholic Conference in opposition to the same-sex marriage that unfortunately is a pretend law. And is co-founder of the National Capital Tea Party Patriots, and like I said, Vice President of Election Integrity Maryland. And then we come to David Spielman. And David is the outreach coordinator for the National School Choice Week, which we have talked about several different times. But this is a way to get involved, which you'll find out about. David has been fighting for school choice and education reform. He was formerly the campaigns coordinator at FreedomWorks, where he also ran successfully a grassroots campaigns promoting school choice in several different states. Then we come to Jack Ames. Jack Ames has been key in the pro-life space here in Maryland and District of Columbia and Northern Virginia for a long time. He co-defended Defend Life in 1987, dedicated to spreading the culture of life and fighting the culture of death through pro-life education and activism. Defend Life is the largest, most active grassroots pro-life organization in Maryland. And so I would like to thank you and hope that you will welcome all of our speakers.
Thank you, Tanya. I think you're probably all getting sick of seeing me up here. For those of you who weren't here in the morning, I'll just briefly explain. I'm a volunteer with Help Save Maryland. Help Save Maryland is a nonpartisan, multi-ethnic, grassroots citizens group that has its mission to educate people about the many problems that illegal immigration causes in the state of Maryland. Crime, tax increases, traffic congestion, environmental issues, the whole works. We are a 501c3 educational nonprofit, which means that any donations to Help Save Maryland are tax deductible. Hint, hint, hint. But as we'll talk later, that has proven to be a problem in the past year. Help Save Maryland was started in 2006, sort of. It's kind of hard to say when we started because it was really a collection of lots of individuals and small groups who were concerned about the issue in many different parts of the state and many different aspects of it. So it's hard to say when we really started. Last year, after the successful petition drive by Neil Parrott to get the in-state tuition for illegal aliens at Maryland colleges on the ballot, Help Save Maryland decided that was going to be our #1 priority. So that's where we focused all our efforts last year. And although it did not pass on the ballot or in the elections, we have to look on the bright side. We got 90,000 more votes than Mitt Romney did in the state of Maryland. So we got significant crossover. Let's see, with 90,000 votes, we postponed the law for almost 2 years, like 18 months or whatever. We prevented it from going into effect, so we saved the Maryland taxpayers hundreds of thousands of dollars in tuition subsidies. And third, we brought over $1.5 million of out-of-state money into the Maryland economy. But our opponents came and bought all the airtime and printing and all the other good stuff. So, let's look at the glasses half full. I said the 501c3 aspect hurt us because when we set ourselves up, we didn't anticipate something like this petition drive. As a 501c3, you cannot lobby. So we were having to be very careful in that we could educate people about the law, but we could not say vote for or vote against. Despite trying to be very careful, we had the board of the Maryland Democratic Party sick their national level lawyers on us. We were investigated by the Board of Elections, we were being investigated by the IRS. They really tried to squash our tiny little effort. What are we going to do next year, and how can you get involved? We need more volunteers. We need especially people that are going to take responsibility to organize things at the county level. Much of what we do is really not statewide. We're addressing local problems, whether it's a day laborer center or a zoning issue or some other thing, like English only. Many of these things happen at the county level. So we really do need people who will volunteer all from across the state. Judy, are you still a Baltimore County Director?
As far as I know.
Okay. I mean, do we have any others? I don't know all the directors. I'm really just a volunteer. We got someone over there. What county?
Carol.
Carol? Talk to these two people. You know, what we really trying to do is do local things, because that's where the action is. One of the things we're going to try to do this year is monitor the community colleges, universities, to see how they're implementing this DREAM Act. Are they really doing all the things that the law says that they're supposed to do? If you know anything about this DREAM Act, it has a lot of requirements which are going to be very difficult for the colleges to enforce. Because the requirements were put in to make the law sound good, but we want to see if they're actually doing the follow-up and doing the things that they're supposed to be doing. So we need volunteers, especially people maybe that have kids that are applying to colleges here in Maryland, or especially the community colleges. We're always available to come to your group and speak. So if you're like a county Republican group or some Kiwanis or anything like that, we're ready to come speak. We're working with Carroll County. There's an English only law, Carroll County people. I'm talking about that. Montgomery County, we're going by code, housing code enforcement. Montgomery County people, I'm talking about that. And it says that we're working to stop the expansion of day labor centers into Baltimore County and elsewhere. That's what the Baltimore County people can do. So I'm going to leave it at that, but there's a lot of things to be done, and the goal is to fight them at the local level, one project at a time.
I want to thank Marilyn Can for inviting me to be here as a speaker. It's really quite an honor, and you should know that Kathy Trowerbeck was on our board previously, as was Kathy Kime. I want to give them a shout out and thank them for all the time that they spent. She's with Wacomico County, so we appreciated all your efforts, and thank you both. The thing about coalitions is they have modest beginnings, and in our particular case, we started after we heard a speech prepared and given by Anita Moncrief, who is a resident of Maryland. Many of you have probably heard of her and know her tale, but to put it very quickly out there, she was a bold and unafraid person who was willing to blow the whistle on Acorn, yes, and to blow the whistle on the amount of instituted voter fraud that was being perpetrated by the campaign that elected Obama and earlier elections, although the finger pointing went to that particular campaign. After listening to what she had to say, 3 of us from Montgomery County decided to venture down to Houston, Texas to listen to and to learn what had been uncovered and what had been learned and what was being preached by a group called True the Vote. True the Vote had uncovered rampant voter fraud in their voter registrations, and they developed a way to legally do what you're allowed to do, which is to research and look at voter registrations to make sure that they are free and fair and free of errors that would allow someone to vote who doesn't have the right to vote. They found a number of things that were incorrect. They were ready to present this to the media. They had all of their data locked up in a warehouse. The media knew that this was going to happen, and earlier in the day, before the media press conference took place, the warehouse containing all of the data was burned down. That didn't stop them. Today, they are the reason that 37 states have integrity projects such as Election Integrity Maryland. Election Integrity Maryland was really started with 4 people at a kitchen table. And we have grown to have a number of volunteers. And what we do is we use a system that was devised by True the Vote that allows us on our own home computers to research voter registrations to make sure that the information is correct and that people who have access to vote are legitimate voters. I have before me the results of the research of just 1% of the the registrations in Maryland. That represents 36,000 voter registrations that we have actually investigated and looked at. And out of those, there were 11,000 irregularities that led to voter fraud. Of those, I have in this notebook 1,500 names of dead voters that were on the voter rolls and that had been on the voter rolls sometimes for a decade. I'm happy to say that as a result of our research and our presenting challenges to Montgomery County, to Baltimore County, to Anne Arundel County, to Wacomico County, to Prince George's County, all of the dead voters that are in this binder that were identified before October 16th of 2012 have been removed from the voter roll. I emphasize the dead voters because we can all appreciate that the most, but there are other problems. Now, one of the problems that we have as a group is we need your help. We need your volunteerism. We need your time. We need financial contributions. We are a corporation running without an income. It can't be forever. We really count on the citizens of Maryland to help us. We hope that you will. We hope that you want to find out more about Election Integrity Maryland and come and join us in our initiatives. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Elizabeth Myers, and I'm from Anne Arundel County. I started to study the U.S. and Maryland constitutions a few years ago, and have woken up to just how much legislation is passed that is blatantly unconstitutional. So a couple months ago, I decided to actually do something about it, and I started Maryland Legislative Watch. We already had dozens of volunteers who are reading legislation as it comes out, and we need more. The bills that we're concerned with are those that are antithetical to the Maryland Declaration of Rights, which is at the beginning of your Constitution, and those that add fines, fees, penalties, taxes, tolls, or increase those. When we find bills that fit these criteria, I have a website that you can find on the brochure that you have in your packet. And those bills are listed along with the contact information for all of the committees and the sponsors, and you can read the legislation. You can also, we ask, we're two-prong attack. We need people to read the bills, and we need people to go ahead and contact legislators. An interesting thing is if you read the Maryland Declaration of Rights at the beginning of the Constitution, Article 45 says that this enumeration of rights shall not be construed to impair or deny others retained by the people. However, the Maryland Legislators Handbook, which I assume all the legislators get from the Maryland They all get it. And it says that on page 7, it's put up by Maryland Legislative Services. Although the General Assembly's inherent power to legislate is limitless, except where specifically restrained by the constitutional authority. So how many of these legislators are taking this seriously and are just legislating every little thing that comes out? Quite a few. A couple of examples I have is Senator Young, I call it the Give Us Your Liver Bill, actually wants us to opt out of organ donation. We're assuming that the state owns your body, and you have to opt out at the MBA of organ donation. And currently, I don't know if you know, but if you bring more than 2 packs of cigarettes into the state, you are breaking the law. They want to up it to a carton, but they also want to make it so that each carton first carton brings a $150 fine, every carton thereafter brings a $300 fine, and up to 2 years in prison. These are the kinds of things that are going on. 2,000 of these are coming through, or bills that are potentially as bad are coming through every session. And while they have guns and other things dangled over here, this is what's over here that we're not paying attention to. So what I would ask you to do is please visit the website, please come, I have a vendor table, and we really want to get people involved. Thank you.
Excuse me, I'm just getting over the flu now. I'm here to talk about about same-sex marriage. I'm a writer, and oh, sorry, my voice is so. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm a writer. I've spent a lot of time writing about the issue of same-sex marriage here in Maryland and across the country. I lobby down in Annapolis. In fact, I spent most of January, February, and March in Annapolis this past year trying to get the legislature to vote against same-sex marriage. One other thing I should point out is that I'm gay, and I'm not here as part of any particular group in this coalition. I'm not with the Maryland Marriage Alliance or the Maryland Catholic Conference or the National Organization for Marriage or any of those groups which came together to battle same-sex marriage in Maryland. But I'm just here as a grassroots activist who played a role in this past year. And you may be wondering what a gay guy is doing here in a group like this. I had somebody a couple of years ago, we got to talking, and I mentioned that I'm a conservative, and their jaw dropped, and they said, "But you're gay. How can you possibly be a conservative?" And I looked at them, and I said, "You're an adult. You have children. How can you possibly be a liberal?" And children, I really feel, is what's at the heart of the matter here. Because the issue of same-sex marriage, it's been portrayed as a right. It's been portrayed as a something that anybody should have access to, no matter the combination, permutations of genders or numbers of people or whatever. But the fact is, it's the selfishness of adults trumping the rights of children and the needs of children. And how many of you are surprised that we lost this past November? I mean, I certainly was. All the people I talked to, of course I talked to people like you mostly, but I just really felt like we had momentum on our side. But I think the lesson here is that no matter how good and pure our intentions are, the other side has had this machine that's been humming along for a very long time. We have to find out how to build the same kind of machine that can outdo them. Because otherwise, and we should be more motivated than they are, because we realize that the future of children in this country is at stake. Now, while we've lost the issue here in Maryland, there will be future issues that come up here, certainly. But it's also moved on to the national scene. And one thing I want to point out is that the conservatives in general in this country are crumbling on this issue. Conservatives and the Republican Party. I've been shocked at what I've seen and what I've read. The Wall Street Journal has pretty much gone over to the other side on this. The Washington Times has. Fox News pretty much has. I mean, they don't stand up there saying, you know, we're all gay now or for same-sex marriage. What they're doing though is they're not coming out against it at all, and they're loath to put anybody on who is opposed to same-sex marriage. And even you know, plenty of politicians now, ever since the election in November, they're starting to jump ship, and they're starting to say, well, you know what, maybe this isn't such a bad thing after all. Even Newt Gingrich now is saying that he's okay with same-sex marriage. Now here's the thing, we have to fight this thing still, because we've got the rest of the country, most of the rest of the country, to fight this battle in. And we've also got the Supreme Court taking up a couple of these cases this year. So one thing I'd like to say is, don't be afraid to speak out. Don't be afraid to talk to your friends, neighbors, and other states where this is going to be on the ballot in future years. And what you need to do is to not let the arguments about, well, this narrative that you're homophobic, that you're bigoted, that you're a knuckle-dragging Neanderthal if you oppose same-sex marriage. You can be opposed to same-sex marriage and not be the least bit homophobic. I'm a perfect example of that. And let me tell you, I was at a town hall speaking before the election about same-sex marriage, and a guy in the audience raised his hand to ask the question, and he prefaced it by saying, "I'm not a hater." And I felt so bad at that moment, because I realized this guy's been programmed by the media to have to add this disclaimer that, hey, I don't hate you because I'm asking you a question, or questioning same-sex marriage. But the other side is trying to make it impossible for us to fight for the rights of children, impossible to fight for the good of children. And but we need to do this, and we can't give up. We can't be silenced. We can't be fearful that people are going to say, you know, call us names or something. Just remember, we're doing this for the children of this nation, and we cannot wave the white flag yet.
Contagious. Oh, great. My name is David Spielman, and I'm really giddy right now because I have heard more talk about school choice than any other topic today. So give me a round of applause. I'm here on behalf of National School Choice Week, and before I get into school choice and National School Choice Week, this panel is about outreach. Folks, pardon my language, but we suck at outreach. All of us got beaten handedly a few months ago. Everybody was talking about Obama's ground game being weaker, outmatched by the Tea Party. Obama was working where all of us forgot to go. He was in the pool halls, the pubs, the bars, the schools, the union shops. He was talking to teachers. He was talking to everybody. You know who we were talking to? Each other. It's not going to work. You know, after the 2008 election, our friend, not our friend, but James Carville wrote a book, 100 Years of Democrat Control, or whatever it was. And I read it. and I bought every line of it because I worked in the trenches. I was there. I worked for Freedom Works for 2.5 years. Before that, I worked organizing my campus. I did what Gabby did, working on campuses, talking to college students. We were outmatched. We were beaten. And it wasn't a shock to me. I'll tell you, at about 7 o'clock at night when the first results rolled in, I knew we lost because I saw the difference in vote totals for the election for the Senate races. And you'll generally know by the Senate races where we stand. So if this is a panel about outreach, then I'm going to transition into school choice. On November 28th, National Review Online wrote an article called, quote, Republican RX, Parental Choice in Education, end quote. And in it, it said, if there is one issue that the Republicans can take some joy out of this election, it is the victories on school choice throughout the country, notably Washington, Georgia, and a few other states. And in it, the author makes the argument that says, yeah, they lost. They got beat pretty badly. Us, the Republicans, conservatives. But for the one issue they didn't get beat, that was education reform. And he argued that it's the one issue that liberals cannot outflank us on. Think about it. The messaging, the statistics, is all in our favor. America ranks 25th in the world in math. America ranks 17th in the world in science. Maryland, by the way, is not number 1. According to some statistics, other tests, we're like number 11. Still pretty good. We spend more than any other nation, except Luxembourg, like was said before. We're not doing well. Also, big government Democrats, who do they support? Unions. Unions are as unpopular as ever. These bureaucrats who tell you how to, where you should go to school and how you should educate your kid. And next time you talk to a bureaucrat, ask them if they know the name of your kid, because they don't. But the point I'm saying here is there's a perfect opportunity, and the opportunity is school choice. And it's outreach, and it's going to take outreach. I have sat hand in hand with a Democrat. I have marched with Democrats. I have marched with African American Democrats, Hispanic Democrats, all for one reason: school choice. Because we all agree on it. If we're ever to change the culture of this country and win elections, we need to do outreach now. So, here's the shameless plug for National School Choice Week. National School Choice Week is a partnership. We team up with everybody and everybody. We have Democrats for School Choice. We have Freedom Works, AFP, groups like you guys, MD-CAN, we have 50CAN, the national groups. We have so many groups. This year we have 3,500 events taking place across the country. It's up to you guys to plan these events. Go to schoolchoiceweek.com, check it out, see what it's all about. I urge every one of you, and if I go over time I apologize, but I urge every one of you to look at this and look at what we can do. As simple as putting on an event in your backyard can have a trickle effect and kind of have a ripple effect where every time and more people get involved. But how many of you people have actually done an event? How many of you have stepped on a college campus? How many of you have talked to an African American that's not conservative? How many of you have ever talked to a gay American who's not conservative? How many of you have not talked to a Democrat without getting in a fight with them? That's hard, I get it, but guess what? It's possible. I just got back from San Francisco for a partners meeting, and I was sitting next to Democrats, and I've never had such great conversation and agreed on so much with a Democrat in my whole life. But I walked away realizing it's that type of conversation that's going to win us the future. It's not this anti-Democrat. I get it. We all think liberals stink. I get it. I've heard it. I worked for Freedom Works. I'm a libertarian. I get it. I don't like liberals. I don't like their policy. But if we continue to alienate them, alienate Hispanics and minorities, we're going to lose. So schoolchoiceweek.com, get involved, plan an event, be part of history, make history for school choice, and make the next step. Because I will tell you, we are floundering right now. Make that next step. Thank you very much.
I'm Jack Ames. I'm a pro-life fugitive. And how do you like my t-shirt? Look at the back. I'm going to turn around so you can see it as well. See that?
What does it say?
Oh, okay. You can see it afterwards. But anyway, speaking of conversations, David, that's so important. let me tell you, when you wear this pro-life t-shirt, and everybody here can get one, just email t-shirts@defendlife.org, give us your address and your shirt size, and we'll send you one free on one condition. You promise to wear it at least one day a week in public, okay? That's not much. You know, when you go shopping to the Giant or wherever, if you're want to wear it to church, that's fine too, but just wear it in public. Wearing it at home doesn't count. You'll get all sorts of looks. Let me tell you, most people are pro-life. They're philosophically pro-life, they're just not actively pro-life. So our job is to make them actively pro-life. When somebody comes up and says, I like a t-shirt, you're going to say, oh, I'll get you one, just give me your name and address, and we'll send you one. What's your shirt size, by the way? Oh, we gotta wear it one day a week. Now, let me tell you a little bit about, you're all old enough, probably most of you took geography. Remember, we don't teach geography anymore, do we? People don't know what's closer, Richmond or New Orleans or San Francisco. It's just a big blur. So anyway, imagine all the states west of the Mississippi, north of Missouri. That would include Iowa, Minnesota, the Dakotas, Nebraska, Wyoming, Idaho, Washington State, Oregon, Nevada, we're getting a little south there, and Colorado. Add in Alaska and Hawaii, and then add in New York State, okay? The population of all those states together is about 55 million. That's the number of babies we've killed by legalized surgical abortion since 1973. No wonder our country is in trouble. Because we're literally killing God's creation. No wonder we have so much immigration. The only thing that's keeping us going economically is immigration, both legal and illegal, in my opinion. We're well below the birth rate, if we were to know the actual birth rate. Europe is obviously in much, much worse shape than we are. But anyway, 1 out of every 3 babies or something like that is being aborted. In the black community, it's something like 60%. The black community is no longer the largest minority in America. The Hispanics are, because the blacks are literally killing themselves because of people like Jesse Jackson and so forth. By the way, he was originally pro-life. Now, if you can kill in the womb, where else can you kill? Outside the womb, right? So, anybody ever hear of Terry Schiavo? Yeah. About 6 or 7 years ago, she was starved to death down in the Tampa, Florida area. A group of us went down. And, but she literally was starved to death. Now, do you think it's just going on in Tampa, Florida? No, it's going on right here in Maryland. Just last summer, a woman was starved to death at the old North Arundel Hospital. I called up the second man in command there. I said, you're starving a woman to death. Oh, well, we really can't talk about it, you know, blah, 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 blah. But, and anyway, they went into a high security alert mode. They thought I was going to come down and attack them or something like that. But she was starved to death. Now, the only reason we knew about it is because her 2 grandchildren were aghast that their uncle is the one who pulled out this piece of paper saying that she didn't want food and water if she couldn't make her own medical decisions. Durable power of attorney. It's very important that everybody have a durable power of attorney if you get into a situation like that, God forbid. Well, anyway, we're in a mess. That's why we started Defend Life 26 years ago, back in 1977, because there wasn't enough going on. So we do 3 things. One of the things we do is we have lecture tours. We have these great speakers. We try to get them into churches, schools. Matter of fact, a recent speaker was also a captive in North Vietnam, as is the speaker you're about to hear after myself. His name is Guy Gruters. He gave a fantastic talk. We're having, you pick up some of the literature we have out on our table immediately outside. You'll see our upcoming speakers, fantastic speakers. We don't charge for our speakers. They're the best speakers in the pro-life movement. Visit our website as well, defendlife.org. The second thing we do is we have a great magazine. It's known as Defend Life, name of our organization. Just full of great articles. For instance, somebody was referring to the Alinsky type organizations. Read the article in here about BUILD, which is the Baltimore version of Alinsky organizations. Great articles in here. How the Catholic bishops are supporting hookers, things like, all sorts of crazy stuff. It's all in here. We're very politically incorrect. By the way, we're all volunteer. Now, the third thing we really do is we have truth tours to expose the ugly, evil face of abortion. We go around the state of Maryland, we go into Washington, D.C., the belly of the beast, and we have these huge pictures of aborted babies, second and third trimester aborted babies. Well, you know what happened? When we do it five days in a row, three times a day. Back in 2008, we were arrested, 18 of us, in Harford County, outside of Bel Air, actually in Bel Air. Well, guess what? We were released, the charges were dropped, we turned around and we sued Harford County and the Maryland State Police, and guess what? We got a $500,000 settlement. And better than that, the Maryland State Police had to go back to school and learn about the First and Fourth Amendment. So the important thing is we be fearless. Remember John Paul the Great? The theme of his papacy was be not afraid. That's all through Scripture. Do not be afraid. Just go forth. Trust in the Lord. God plus one is a majority. Now let's talk quickly about the O'Malley problem. The O'Malley problem.
You have to finish, I'm sorry.
Okay. I knew Martin O'Malley's father. He was pro-life, he was conservative. You know who his mother works for? Barbara Mikulski. O'Malley's mother is Barbara Mikulski's gatekeeper in her Washington office. Now, O'Malley is very clever. He's going around the country portraying himself as a conservative. We know what he is. He's a vicious liberal. So we have to do everything we can to embarrass this man, perhaps make him lose his cool. Here's what I did a couple of years ago. He was at a 4th of July parade. He's coming by in his convertible, and I have my bullhorn, and I say, Martin O'Malley, you're not half the man your daddy was in an Irish. So anyway, we've got it. This man can lose his cool. He's very arrogant. So that's what we have to do.
Thank you. I'll try to make it brief. I'm going to talk to you about the Second Amendment. First, I want to tell you something. There were some things that these are dark times, but I've seen much darker. And I learned, in a heart of darkness, I learned four things. First, there is a Creator. Second, we were born to be free. Third, we have a duty to resist evil, and 4, we have a duty to defend life. If you come see me afterward, I'll explain how I learned those things, because it's really a funny story, but I don't have time. William Gladstone said the Constitution of the U.S. is the greatest instrument ever struck at a moment in time by the hand of man. But I always point out to people that he is wrong. The Constitution was written in 1787 during the summer, but it is the distillation of 3,000 years of human civilization and thought and experience. For example, when I wrote an amicus brief, I wrote one of the briefs on the Second Amendment case in the Supreme Court. And I quoted William Gladstone, and then I go back and I quote Cicero, a Roman lawyer. 2,000 years ago, Cicero represented a man named Milo. Milo was attacked in his home by a gang, and he killed the leader of the gang, a notorious criminal named Clodius Pulcher. And he was prosecuted for murder. And Cicero got him off. But this is what Cicero said. This is a law that is ordained by God, self-defense. It is not written in a book, it is written on the heart. And it cannot be different in Athens or in Rome. It is a sin to try to change this law. And Montesquieu, who was guide to the people that wrote the Constitution, said, self-defense is the known law of all lands. It is around the world, except apparently now in Britain. And right now they're trying to use emotion to scare the hell out of you. So let me tell you about these public rampages. First of all, I've done civil commitment hearings, and most of these people are not committable. They're not psychotic. They're not normal, but they're not psychotic. So we can't do anything. We can't force them into a mental hospital. And the only way to stop a lunatic or a crazy, evil person with a gun is for a good person with a gun. You can't, there's nobody else to do it. And you never see school children out of sight of armed adults. And they don't have school shootings there. And it isn't the kind of equipment either. You know, they're talking about military-style assault weapons. They tried that once. They tried a ban. And 2 days after the ban took effect, I called Olympic Arms and arranged to buy the first AR-15. They couldn't call it an AR-15, so they called it PC-15 for politically correct. I bought the first one that they produced 2 days after the ban started. Because the ban was so poorly written. It was written by a guy who thought it was a stupid idea. But they asked, the liberals asked him to write it, so he wrote it so that it was contradictory. So contradictory, in fact, we tried to challenge the law, and I was contacted by a public defender, a federal defender from one of the big cities, related to a congressman, by the way, and the guy had robbed a bank using a rifle. It's a Kalashnikov. It was made in Egypt. But it doesn't say Kalashnikov on the outside, and it didn't have a flash suppressor. There's a list of things that make it an assault weapon, none of which are functional. They don't do anything to make a gun lethal. They just make it look ugly. And that's how they came up with the ideas. They just were looking at pictures of ugly guns and stuff like this. And so I put an ATF agent on the stand, and he testified that everything in this gun is identical. And the federal defender said, what should I do? I said, tell him, I gave him an affidavit that the U.S. Attorney's Office gave us in the lawsuit, and said, send it to the technical branch of the ATF, because I knew that Ed Owen would review it, and he would say it's not an assault rifle, and it wasn't. Okay, the last thing that I learned in the heart of darkness is this. I'll repeat what Nick got it wrong. He didn't get the quote wrong, right, from Winston Churchill. He only said never twice. Winston Churchill visited his old boarding school at Harrow during the Battle of Britain, and he said to the boys, never give up. Never, 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 never. 4 nevers, not 2. Except for considerations of duty and honor. Don't give an inch. I'm telling you, this is the voice of experience. You can't satisfy Marxists by giving an inch. Tell them to go to hell.
I love it. Okay, so we are done with this panel, and don't go anywhere. You know, you have to sit here if you want to go to the happy hour that's being sponsored by our wonderful PACs out there. So you guys have to say that. Okay? Just give us 2 seconds, and we'll switch out.